Shraddha, I got a text from the coordinator. You can begin with the anchoring now. Shraddha?
The capacity to learn is a gift. The ability to learn is a skill. The willingness to learn is a choice. Yes, we have made a choice to imbibe knowledge. And the best way to do so is to be in the company of enlightened minds. This is the purpose, the vision behind organizing Senate 21, the annual finance convention. It gives me immense pleasure to accord a hearty welcome to our honorable guest, Mr. Suresh Prabhu, our principal, Dr. S.P. Agarwal, and all those present in our ongoing series of keynote session being organized by FinGen, FSC of Ramanujan College. Mr. Suresh Prabhu, a politician par excellence, a man of action and impeccable integrity. Having deep-rooted commitments towards society, Mr. Prabhu has always been working with missionary zeal. He has he has ministered. Sorry. Mr. Prabhu has always been working with missionary zeal. He has been featured among the top three leaders in the Asia Week magazine. He held ministries like commerce and industry, civil aviation, and many more, and has done commendable job in all those fields. Being constantly featured in the list of top five ministers in terms of performance and accessibility, Mr. Prabhu has always Mr. Prabhu has many more feathers in his cap. Now, I request our principal, Dr. S.P. Agarwal, to address the audience. The virtual stage is all yours, sir.
Thank you. Good afternoon and welcome to our special guest, Shri Suresh Prabhuji. Actually, last year also he was with us in one of the functions, of course, on virtual platform, and again this year. And situation is worse than last year. At this point of time, he has agreed to join us and to speak on restructuring economic policies to accelerate growth rate of Indian economy is a great initiative. I congratulate the finance department, especially Dr. Arnav and all young friends who have organized this annual function and to remain busy during this COVID-19. Well, friends, let me tell you that we at the college level has been very active in engaging the teachers and students so that they should not think all the time of this COVID-19. Rather, we have converted this as an opportunity by training 100,000 teachers pan India, and we have organized such programs for students also. And the students have immensely benefit. We are trying that young mind should not remain under stress. So with this background, another important thing is that about economy on which you have organized this fest is basically a very important. We have listened to two earlier speakers, but Suresh Prabhuji is a thorough professional and has lot of experience in handling various ministries. He knows in and out of the Indian economy, and probably his experience listening him will be it's a different kind of experience. I have heard him and we are going to hear him again today on Indian economy. Friends, another important thing is that basically to my mind, there are 4 or 5 things on which we have to work. That is education, health, roads, infrastructure, agriculture, innovation, and R&D, on which we talked earlier also. Very important for this country, because unless until we invest in R&D and innovation, we will not be able to outsmart other countries. And this COVID, we have to convert it into an opportunity. Of course, the human life is the first thing. We need to save human lives. That is important. But once that is over, we have to work very hard in order to revive the economy and make it competitive all over the world. With this background, once again, welcome to Suresh Prabhuji, and thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. Thank you. Over to you.
Am I should speak? Secondly, what I want to tell you is
Shraddha?
okay.
So thank you very much for
We are super
inviting me for
excited
this
to
very
get
interesting
enlightened.
program.
Sir. The virtual stage is all yours.
I want to congratulate you for
You told me 15 to 20. No?
such a nice idea of Zenith annual conference, which you keep doing.
Can everybody mute, please?
Okay, you can give me the resume of the second
Actually,
one.
today
What you do is you interview all
there are
of them and give me
a lot of
resume.
important programs on
Okay.
fighting corona, so I will be very brief and sorry for that because I have to go for some other program.
There is no issue.
But Agarwal ji,
Secondly, what I want to tell you is
I was asked to speak about government intervention in large economies.
Okay, we will mentally decide to take them on. Okay.
You know, we
And we will issue them
have been
an offer
building
letter
economic
once
models
we know
in the
what
world
happens
for a while.
now.
One model presupposes that markets have the ability to solve all problems. The other model believes in
I have to- for me,
markets
continuously understand.
should also
For
be
me, it doesn't matter
monitored
whether you take,
and influenced by government action.
But my thing is that we have to look at the target that
For a long time,
1,500 should be met. Now, if you want more people for that, and if you see that existing
The first
people are
model,
competent and they're not doing,
which
then
is
you should change
laissez-faire
it.
model, kind of a
Whatever you
model,
recommend is fine. You
in which government will have hands-off relationship with the markets and with the economy, and will allow the markets to grow on their own strength, intrinsic values. The economies which embrace this model, they grew at a very fast rate. And those who believed in state-managed economies, after some time, stumbled. State-managed economies, if I can call them state-managed economies, I don't think states can manage economy anyway. But the so-called, putting it a little bit simplistically, for a long time, the lack of information or state-sponsored propaganda made countries believe that the model based on state control was very effective.
Sandesh also doesn't mind coming, right?
The USSR was a very large economy. That's what was believed. Because they could support and virtually compete with United States, the other competitor of USSR in the Cold War days. They could match them with so many scientific breakthroughs. If US could send spacecraft, so could USSR.
I don't know what is the future of Prashant.
And USSR was such a large country, going into 3 continents almost. And therefore, and the propaganda was strong. So believe that this is really the right model. People are happy, people are doing well, there is zero unemployment. Virtually all problems that are associated with market economies are absent there. And when then came the breakdown of USSR. Now more than 30 years have passed for that event. And when that happened, what the reason was for that was, there are many reasons. One important reason was the economy. Because economy could not sustain the very multifarious activities the state had undertaken. And then came a thinking, no, the so-called Western model led by USSR and Europe, USA and Europe, is the only model that will sustain. Because USSR had gone, there are so many new countries were born out of USSR disintegration. And many of the countries are trying to borrow this particular model because they felt it is a model which will bring in higher growth and better lives for the people. So 1991 was a turning point when the breakdown of USSR and other things happened. And 2008 then came as a rude shock to the believers in market. 2008, the economy which was growing dramatically, global economy was growing dramatically, came to a big stumbling block, and questions were raised about the ongoing movement of such models which can bring in indefinite growth. In any case, we must also accept the fact that growth in economy is a function of so many factors. One of them is the natural capital has to be leveraged to bring in higher economic growth. And natural capital itself is limited. Natural resources are not infinite. And therefore, to believe that markets or any economic model will grow indefinitely itself is based on fallacy, which has to be first related to the real issues of whether you have natural resources or not. But anyway, that's a different model. We are not discussing it today. So 2008 came in when the large economies,
For all you know, they may not be even talking to
so-called the believers in market, had to step in, bring government money to save the large banks. And they came out
So basically what I'm
with an argument that these banks are too large to fail, or financial institutions like Lehman Brothers was not a bank, are too big to fail. I jokingly I'd said at that time they're too big to fail, but small companies are too small to survive. It's a different matter. But what did the governments did? What did the government do? The governments put in money to save these failures of these institutions, banks, and financial institutions. In US, you need to airlines and many others. So that means the government cannot keep the hands off in any model. Whether it's the USSR, which actually was too much of micromanagement of economy, which was not working, or here putting just hands off in economy is also not going to work. That is what we had to accept. And then came the pandemic, wherein governments are pouring trillions, actually in case of US, trillions of dollars. The EU is also putting almost, if not the same amount, comparable amount. That means state intervention in the market is something which we are not accepting as a reality. We felt that a perfect market will work without government intervention. Government only has to regulate, appoint a regulator. Regulation will work on that. Interestingly, in between, and I will just mention about that natural capital, so I'll just mention it for a few minutes. The climate change happened, and it happened despite, and it happened also in those countries where the emissions went up, where there are large economies, and so successful on economic ground, economic parameters. But the climate change posed a very important question. Should now government intervene to regulate some of these activities which are actually fueling the market? And there's one very interesting report. We said, I think it was by Nicholas Stern. I'm just speaking on memory. I don't prepare speech anytime. But the report was sure, but I don't know whether it was author was Nicholas Stern, my dear friend, Lord Nicholas Stern, Nick Stern, or somebody else. The report said that climate change is the biggest market failure. We left it to the market. So markets can do the job well, and this is proved. There's no doubt. I mean, I also believe in that states should not micromanage everything. At the same time, this has put certain questions. One, a huge pandemic like what we are facing today, currently, climate change, or the big failure that happened in 2008. Was it because the institutional failure of regulators that allowed such a situation to develop? Yes, but still, the money had to be poured in, the public money, taxpayers' money from the budget had to be poured into rescue private companies. That's a fact. And that means that in future, we cannot say that governments will have a completely hands-off relationship. It should have hands-off relationship, but can government wash their hands off the economy? That's the question. Hands off, good, but can they wash their hands off? What is the best way to do it? And that puts us to another very interesting question. That future economic growth, future economic models will have to be built on learning right lessons, at least of these three important events, 2008, pandemic, and climate change, and build the new resilience, new institutional support into India's market economy, but also global economies. We'll have to build global institutions to deal with that. We'll have to have proper structured regulation built into economic models of future. The markets, one of the great thing about when you leave it to the market is it brings in the best entrepreneurship to fore. It allows the markets to determine the success or a failure of an institution. So failures will happen. The failure of a firm in the market is a different thing than market failure. Climate change was a market failure, as was argued by the author. Firms will fail inevitably, but markets should not fail. And you can avoid the market failure by building strong institutions, strong regulation, strong structures. But that is very important that we should also trust markets, because markets bring, as I said, the best in entrepreneurship. People, Elon Musk is a creation of market. Top technology companies in the US are the creation of market. In India, IT firms are creation of market. Pharma companies are creation of market. Market rewarded them, they put a lot of money into them. They got equity, they got debt. So markets are very important to bring in proper allocation of resources, proper rewarding of entrepreneurship, bringing innovation, bringing in dynamism, bringing in efficiency. But with all this, for the markets to perform such very important task, there must be a proper structure, proper institution, proper regulation. And if we don't have that, then we'll have a challenge. So I think we need to build upon these experiences and work on these new challenges and try to work in a way that India will build a resilient market economy, which will not be leaving everybody to the market forces. We'll have to offer helping hand to the most vulnerable sections of the society. We'll have to ensure that
just take 3 codes.
markets are not
Whichever is
protecting
best,
somebody,
let them give their
because markets will
samples.
not protect somebody unless you have purchasing
Select,
power.
let
You
them
enter
select
market because you have
purchase
purchasing
committee,
power.
and once you
And all
complete
those
the
who don't have purchasing power, how will you
provision
take
period,
care of
you
them?
will be on the purchase committee.
So the state government will have to
And
actually
Suman
help
can't be on purchase committee.
the most vulnerable sections,
No.
allow them to graduate to a level wherein they can participate in the market.
Mm.
And therefore, we'll have to build on experiences as well as new priorities that are emerged and new challenges that are being posed to economy, society
Suman can't be on purchase. Because Suman has been
in
talking
India
to
as well
them,
as
no? How
globally.
can she
So
be
we'll
on
have to work on all these issues interesting. So I'm just offering my ideas, but one day we'll discuss it at length. And I'm sure
said, no, so Suman can't be on purchase
such a
committee.
bright mind that you put together, which are at the zenith of thinking, will be able to work together and try to draw up a chart. So, Sumant Agarwal ji, thank you for inviting me. And I'm sure we'll work together and try to think about it. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you very much, sir. Thank you. And thank you for putting a perspective, because these young minds want to know these perspectives, because history is also very important. And how we learn and put the things together, you have done it wonderfully. And that is why you have said that structure and regulation is very, very important in order to make a resilient market economy. And we need to learn from these failures, and we need to work on future of at least our own country. And also very rightly said that we have to help the marginalized society, because that is the key in our economy. And another important thing you raised is the entrepreneurship. So thank you very much, sir. And we always appreciate your coming to this college and your ideas. Of course, today you have limited time, but we will continue to be catch hold of you all the time. Thank you very much, sir. And open to questions if sir has any time. Thank you, sir. Bacho?
Shraddha, you can proceed with vote of thanks and then we can end the meeting.
Okay.
Thank you, sir, for taking out moments from your precious time. I'd like to thank all those who joined.
Yes, ठीक है. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.